Hello there folks, today we're taking a look at the game called Wildlands. It's published by Osprey Games and the designer is Martin Wallace. And in this game you're playing those different factions fighting each other over those shards, but you're basically trying to collect your own shards and trying to kill each other so you can get more points, and if you get to 5 points you win the game. So it's a PvP style tactical combat multi-use cards game from Martin Wallace. So let's take a look at how the game works. So Wildlands is a skirmish miniature game where you will move around the board and you will collect crystals and fight each other. And the point of the game, the goal of the game, is to get to 5 points. And you can get those 5 points, for example, by collecting crystals of your own color. You can collect the crystals of the opposite colors, or you can also destroy opponents' units. This is not a two-player game. I just put a kind of a setup here so you can see how the game works. This game can play up to 4 players. Now if you combine those two, the crystals and the destroy units, the combination of these must be 5, and then you win the game immediately. Or you can just collect all of 5 of your crystals or kill all 5 of the opponent's units. Now how does the game work? There is a stack of different cards. I'm sorry, this is upside down. And these cards are the multi-use cards. These cards will show you the symbols. These symbols correspond to these characters underneath over here. So basically, for example, with this card, I can activate either that character, that, or that character over here. These extra symbols are bonus abilities that these characters can use. Mostly just attacking and defending. So with the usual symbol, for example, if I play this card, I can move one of these characters. But at first, I don't have any characters on my boards, so the first thing you always do, you deploy characters. So you reveal one of the characters, and there are the map cards. So I put them randomly, so I hope they don't really go to the exact crystal places. So the crystals and our heroes will be on different places for sure. But for example, Juan, she will spawn at the spot 20, and you will choose where they spot. So the Johnny will spot over there, and now she can do all the different actions, she can move and so on. So for example, her symbol is a star, so with this card over here, I can use this card to move her one space. It doesn't matter what's the picture over here. The picture may not really be the one. It's more of a just the illustration. And with this card, I can move her one space. So it doesn't matter how many cards I use during turn. So I always have 7 cards in my hand. I can use them as many as I want. Also, there are all the other symbols. I'm going to explain them in a moment. And there are also the special cards. So when I move, there are those white lines, so I move from one room to another room, like that. So when I want to fight somebody, I will choose the fight symbol, which corresponds to my character as well, so I need to find the star with this fight symbol, or a melee or heavy melee or something like that. Then I can fight another character. If I do the range, then there's a line of sight. So if you draw a line from one circle to another circle, you can see whether you hit them or not. And then they can also defend by playing their cards in return. And I'm going to talk about the defense and the attack a little bit later. Now, you have deployed the different characters, and there are different other cards what you can do. So for example, I told you there's the defense and attack. There's also a special card. These are the interrupt cards. So you can do the wild movement, you can move anyone, any character you have, so it doesn't really go to a certain character. You can draw 2 cards, or you can interrupt. What means interrupt? So you will do your turn, you do your actions, and then somebody else can play an interrupt card and say that from now on, they will start doing actions. And when they finish doing those actions, the turn goes back to you where you can continue your actions. So interrupting means that you can do your actions out of your turn, out of your normal clockwise turn. So that's that. And for example, if somebody plays interrupt, somebody else can play another interrupt to interrupt the first interrupter, and so on. There will be kind of a chain reaction over there as well. And there are also some symbols underneath here. So with these symbols, you can use them on any character because there's not a specification on what unit it belongs to. So you can do it on anyone. So these are all the different multi-use cards, and different players have different decks, different distribution of cards. Now, there's the attack and defense. So when you attack or defend, so if you attack, you will attack with melee or heavy melee, dealing 1 or 2 damage, and you can defend against the heavy melee and melee with the same melee symbol. If there's a range attack, the heavy range or the normal range, which is infinite, the heavy range is up to 2 spaces. You can defend with a shield or the cover. So the cover means that there are some circles which are the white numbers in a kind of a blank circle. These are the cover spots. So if you are on this cover spot and then your character and the symbol correspond to what's the situation. So basically, if I cover with that character on the cover spot, with this symbol over here, I can cover, and so basically I can defend myself. So it's like kind of like a shield, but I'm using the cover spots for that instead. And there's also the area damage, and I can also defend from that. So there are some units that do area damage as well. So there's the distribution of those different cards. There's also the flag action, where you can use the flag action in order to move, and then a hero who is adjacent to you can move with you in the same direction. There's the fly as well, which basically lets you go up to 2 spaces instead of moving only 1 space. And it's a whole distribution of different cards, different abilities, and there's very different distribution for each of the faction decks. In the base game, there are 4 of them, and eventually when you get to the crystal, you want to collect them. In order to collect the crystal, you need to get 3 cards with the character symbol you want to collect with. So I need to get, for example, if I'm with the star, I need to get these 3 cards in order to collect the crystal with that character. And then I discard them and I get that character. I will draw only 3 cards at the end of my turn, which means I have 7 at the beginning. If I use all of them, I have only 3 next turn. So sometimes I use less, sometimes I use more, and so on. So, as I told you, you win the game if you attack another person and you destroy them, or you win the game if you get the crystals. You need to get a combination of 5. So if you attack somebody, they will get hit, and there will be hit points that will be put on their cards over here. And eventually when they get up to their health value, they will die. And their miniature will go to the person who killed them. That will be 1 point. That's how basically the attack works. And that's the whole game of Wildlands. So, first of all, components and artwork. And this game, though I wouldn't say it's totally my style of art, but I really like how evocative this art is, and the board itself. It's rather clear, though with some spots, you need to play a little bit in order to see those cover spaces versus the general spaces and so on. But it's a matter of just a play or two, But these are like minor things. But the board is great. The production of the game is great because the miniatures have the wash on them, and it just looks amazing. Though the miniatures are a different different sculpt than the pictures of them, you can still feel them. You can still, if you play the faction for the first time, you might get confused on what character is what character because they are not the biggest miniatures, but they're nice miniatures and you can get used to that. So it's a matter of just playing it more. But yeah, the cards are nice quality. I don't know how well they will stand. So far it feels like the cards are sturdy, but you shuffle them a lot, you hold them in the hand a lot. But still, everything else is in nice art, nice production. I really like those different, like how they managed to do those different characters and the factions, which kind of feel like some kind of a usual faction, like kind of an orc type, but it's not really gnome type, but it's not really, the wizard type, but it's not really. They're so, it's really cool how they created those characters and how they look like on those pictures. They don't look generic, they look different from the usual style. So I give components and artwork 5 out of 5. Let's go to the theme. Now, as I told you, those characters are really different from the usual style fantasy games. And you have a werewolf in a kilt who is a pit fighter, you know. You have old owl, which is a wizard, or the old granny, she's like a witch type thing, you know. And you have those gnomes, which are mechanics and some robot type thing. So they're gnomes, but they're probably engineers and so on. So they all look really cool, and I feel like this creates kind of a world of itself, the world of Wildlands, where those very different from the generic factions, very different factions live and fight each other. I wouldn't say that this is a thematic game, because you are still, it's a PvP style game. You're fighting each other over what? Shards. But there is a story behind that. There is a story about those factions as well. And the factions themselves feel thematic. That's where the theme comes through. I'm not looking at the game as thematic game. This game is not supposed to be extremely thematic game, you know, give you experience of kind of a movie type experience. It's not time stories. But when we look at those factions, how they fight, how they perform, that's where the theme comes through. Like wizards, they have those magical spells that, you know, this is an area damage. Or pit fighters, they are very good at the close combat. Or some of them are ranged fighters. Or one of the factions is more like a human race faction, and they are decent at every possible thing. And gnomes are small, so they dash, they stay together, they run a lot, and so on. So, and then undead, how they works as well. So it just, the theme comes through the factions so well that I feel like there is a good theme over here, and you can give it more theme as you go with the expansions, as we heard about the Adventures expansion, where the heroes come in the dungeon and try to kill us while we try to fight over our own thing, you know? So the theme is great in my opinion. It comes through the artwork as well, so I give it 5 out of 5. Very different characters, not generic characters, love it. So, and let's go to mechanics now. As I told you, this is kind of a PvP style game where you go into the dungeon, you're trying to collect your own shards or kill other players' pieces, so you can get to 5 points and win the game. And I like the multi-use of the cards over here, because sometimes you want to use that card to defend yourself, or you want to use it, you know, with the certain character, or you want to pick up a shard which uses free of a kind. And as soon as you start playing, everything is rather clear. You have those different rows for icons for different characters. You have to get used to that a little bit, but eventually this multi-use of cards works really, really well. I like how at the end of the turn you will pick you will redraw 3 cards total, and when you defend out of your turn, you will have a turn with less cards. And the cool part about the cards is that you can also interrupt. Those are special cards where you can interrupt other players' turn and do your own thing. This is really nice mechanic in my opinion. I really like that, because somebody interrupts me, but somebody else can interrupt, or I can interrupt it back. You know, it's just really, really cool. But I've seen those special cards to mostly be used to redraw or draw more cards during your turn, in order to probably, you know, find a great combination of the same character, so you can walk with him a lot and then pick up a shard or something like that, or just deal a lot of damage. So the cards multi-use thing is really great over here. Also, the line of sight is rather clear, and I like the cover spaces thing as well, the mechanic of covering from the range attacks. And also there's the range attack, there's the melee combat, there are high grounds as well, and everything just works. The factions, and if you play with the full amount of players, when you play with all the 4 factions, they feel really, really balanced as well. So I like that style. I like how in order to move, in order to attack, in order to collect, you are using cards. Everything goes through the cards. And there's that tactical choice, because you will draw those cards and you will see what is sufficient for you, what characters should you activate, or with what characters should you do what in order to use those cards at the maximum possible support, maximum possible opportunity to win the game. So that's really nice. I like that a lot. And also how you reveal your characters and how you choose the first locations for your characters, and you choose the shards for everyone else. This is also kind of a meta game. It's more like a setup in the game itself, and then you start the game. But this setup is kind of a very integral part of the game itself. So everything feels that it fits into this game. Nothing is overdone. Nothing is, not useful in the game. I feel like everything works really fine, like a well-built engine. So I give mechanics 5 out of 5. Let's go to replayability. So, because it depends on what faction you use, and you want to use the same factions quite a few times in order to get used to that faction. Maybe, really think of different strategies and where people choose to have their first spots for their characters and where the shards appear. It's all very different, and that's where I feel the replayability within this game is really nice. You can play it over again. You can explore different other factions, because if you play with only one faction so far and will not try all the other factions, you will not get used to how to counter all the other factions. So you want to play other factions as well a few times. And I think this game has enough replayability. There are also 2 maps over there, and but it's on the other hand about the replayability is that this game is modeled to have more and more factions, more and more map packs, and maybe some extra mechanics. So I feel like I don't want to judge this game based on only this base game, although I have the undead, quite undead expansion as well, the undead faction. But I want to judge this replayability based on how much potential the game has to have those factions, because if they release the game and they will release all the different extra factions right away, they don't know how successful the game will be. But now, as we see that the game is doing well, they can release more and more factions, more map packs. I'm already waiting for more extra mechanics. There's so much, because the design is so clear, design is so finely done. I feel like you can add some extras as you go, some modules, some extra faction map packs, and with their own rules, maybe some new cards. You can add a lot of that. And as a model of a game where it's a faction-based PvP, you can add more factions. I feel like replayability of this game will be great. It is fine right now, but I'm judging it based on what model of a game it is. So I give replayability 5 out of 5. And let's go to the scale. So if you want to play more tactical, just run around, collect shards, and less combat, you can play it with 2 players. You will maybe have a little bit of that combat, but the map is the same, but there's only 2 factions. So for me, 2 players is not that good, but it works. It's fine if you want to have less combat. I cannot say it's bad. But 3 or 4 players, and especially the 4 players, that's where I like my game to be, because this is a little bit more chaotic. But on the other hand, you will always have somebody to fight or somebody to run away from, and there are those your crystals that way, but if you go that way, there's that person, and your crystals the other way, and somebody else is that other way. So you must fight somebody, must always interact with somebody, encounter somebody, and that's where I like this game, because I want to have much more interaction rather than just going to collect the shards and trying to get the best cards. I still want to fight as well, because that's how you stop the others. And that's one of the points as well. That's one of the 2 ways to collect points, to kill other opponents. And I feel like with 4 players, it does it the best. And with 3 players, it works totally fine as well. With 2 players, it's more like a tactical, defensive style, game over there. So I give scale 4 out of 5. And the total for this game is 24 out of 25. And this game receives a golden Würfel medal. I really like Wildlands, and it gives me the whole package, and it gives me a lot of potential, let's say, for the future, because first of all, the more I play the same faction or different faction, the more I understand the game, the more I get involved into different tactics and how to counter each faction, how to play with each faction. But also, I'm looking forward to more content, I'm looking forward to more maps, and maybe some extra mechanics and so on. I feel like this game has a ton of potential, and it will be better with the expansions. And it will get, yeah, better for everyone, I hope. So that's Wildlands, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to look for the social media as well. There's the Twitter, there's the Facebook, there's the Instagram. All the accounts are in the description below, so don't forget to check out those social media accounts as well. But thank you so much for watching. We see you another time. Bye bye. This channel is sponsored by Osprey Games. Check them out at ospreypublishing.com.